Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, you can't turn back.
Welcome to the Formation Table. I'm Dr. Motivate. This is not a podcast about information. It's a space for formation. And today, I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people quietly wrestle with, but don't always know how to name without feeling ashamed. It's one of those topics where people nod in agreement publicly, but carry confusion privately. Deliverance. More specifically, the frustration that comes after it. Because a lot of people have experienced real moments with God, real breakthroughs, real encounters, real freedom, and yet months later, or sometimes even weeks later, they find themselves drifting back toward the very things they thought God already freed them from. Same habits, same patterns, same cycles, same temptations. And when that happens, the internal dialogue can get heavy. Why am I back here? Did I really get free? Did I miss something? Is something wrong with me? And instead of clarity, what often follows is shame or confusion or spiritual exhaustion or that quiet decision to stop trying as hard because the back and forth just feels discouraging. So I want to slow this conversation down because the issue isn't that God didn't move. And it's not that deliverance wasn't real. And it's not that people are weak or unserious about their faith. The issue is that deliverance and discipleship are not the same thing. And when we confuse the two, we set people up for disappointment instead of formation. I want to say that gently because deliverance matters. It's real, it's biblical, it's powerful. God does free people suddenly, decisively, sometimes in moments that feel dramatic and unmistakable. But deliverance is a doorway, not a destination. And discipleship is what teaches you how to live on the other side of that door. That distinction alone explains what a lot of people are experiencing. And at this table, we slow down on purpose. We are not here to hype moments or minimize them. We are here to understand what happens after the moment fades, after the service ends, after the emotions settle, after you're back in your regular life with the same phone, the same environment, the same routines, the same triggers. Because freedom isn't just about what God removes, it's about what God replaces it with. And that replacement takes formation. So if you're here and you ever thought, why do I keep going back to this? This conversation is for you. Not to accuse you, not to shame you, but to help you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. So pull up a seat. Let's talk. One of the most common patterns I see across churches, across cities, across age groups is this cycle where people experience a genuine moment of release. Something breaks, something lifts, something shifts. They feel lighter, clearer, hopeful. And for a while, things really do change. But then life resumes. The same stressors show up, same pressures, the same emotional wounds, the same relational dynamics, the same environment that shaped the old habits is still there, untouched. And slowly, sometimes subtly, sometimes suddenly, people find themselves drawn back to the familiar coping mechanisms, not because they want to rebel, but because they were never trained to live differently. Deliverance removes the weight. Discipleship teaches you how to walk without it. And if no one helps you learn how to walk, you will eventually reach for what you used before, not because you love bondage, but because it's familiar. That's not a moral failure. That's a formation gap. We often treat deliverance like it's the finish line, like once something breaks, the work is done. But biblically and practically, deliverance is often the beginning of responsibility, not the end of it. You see, freedom creates space. Discipleship teaches you how to fill it. Without formation, empty space gets filled by default patterns, old rhythms, old reflexes, old identities. And this is where people get confused. They think returning to old behavior means they weren't really free. But often it means they were free, but not formed. And formation is slower, quieter, less emotional, and far less glamorous than deliverance. You see, formation looks like learning how to say no when no one is watching. It looks like building new routines that don't give instant relief. It looks like confronting the old emotional roots of behavior, not just the behavior itself. It looks like discipline on days when motivation is absent. That's not dramatic, but it is transformative. And here's where I want to be really clear. God does not free people just so they can wander without direction. Freedom was always meant to be paired with following. In Scripture, people weren't just delivered, they were called to walk, called to follow, called to be trained, called to learn a new way of living. But in many modern faith spaces, we celebrate deliverance without building pathways for discipleship. We highlight the moment without preparing people for the maintenance. And then we're surprised when people relapse spiritually. But relapse isn't always rebellion. Sometimes it's untrained freedom. Think about it this way. If someone is released from physical captivity, we don't expect them to immediately know how to live in a free society. They need orientation, structure, support, new habits, new ways of thinking, new rhythms. Spiritual freedom works that same way. Deliverance removes chains. Discipleship teaches coordination. It teaches how to make decisions without compulsion, how to process emotion without numbing, how to face stress without escaping, how to endure discomfort without self-sabotage. And those are learned skills, which means they require practice. And practice requires patience. This is where a lot of people get discouraged because deliverance feels immediate, but discipleship feels slow. Deliverance feels powerful, but discipleship feels ordinary. Deliverance feels like victory, while discipleship feels like work. And if we are honest, a lot of us prefer moments to maintenance. But freedom without maintenance does not last. That's not because God fails, it's because formation was skipped. You see, I've talked to so many people who say things like, I got delivered, but I still struggle. As if those two things can't coexist. As if struggle automatically invalidates freedom. But struggle doesn't mean you weren't free. It often means that you're being invited to grow. You see, freedom removes external bondage. I want you to hear that. Formation addresses internal habits, and habits do not disappear just because the pressure is gone. See, habits are trained responses, and trained responses require retraining. That, my friends, is what we call discipleship. See, discipleship is where freedom learns how to function. And here's another layer we don't talk about enough. Sometimes people return to what God freed them from because that thing served a purpose. It regulated emotion. It numbed pain. It gave a sense of control. It provided relief. Deliverance removes the behavior, but discipleship teaches new regulation, new coping, new grounding. Without that, people don't just miss the habit, they miss what it did for them. And that's where returning begins. Not out of deliverance, not out of defiance, out of unmet need. Discipleship addresses need. Deliverance addresses bondage. Both of those matter. I need you to know that. But when we confuse the two, discipleship and deliverance, people blame themselves for what is actually a lack of formation support. And that, my friends, is why this conversation truly matters. Because God did not free you so that you could live in constant fear of going back. He freed you so you could learn how to live forward. And learning takes time. Learning takes repetition. Learning takes community. Learning takes accountability. Learning takes grace. Not hype, not motivation, not pressure, not shame. Formation is patient, which brings us back to why people keep returning to what God freed them from. Oftentimes, it's because no one walked with them afterward. No one taught them how to think differently. No one helped them restructure their environment. No one helped them name triggers. No one helped them build new rhythms. They were freed, but not discipled. They were given a Bible, they were given a phone call, but they were not discipled. And freedom without direction feels unstable. So people return to what feels predictable. That's not because they don't love God. It's because they don't yet know how to live free. And that's okay, but it's not where you are meant to stay. You are not meant to stay in what I call that missing middle. This is why discipleship is not optional. Discipleship is not extra credit. It's not advanced Christianity. It's not for serious believers only. It's how freedom becomes sustainable. See, discipleship is how the mind is renewed, how the body learns restraint, how the soul learns rest, how identity replaces impulse. Because without it, freedom feels temporary. And I think some listeners right now are realizing something very important. You didn't fail because you went backwards. You were never taught how to stay free, how to navigate that missing middle. And that's not condemnation. That's not to shame anyone. What that is clarity. And clarity, if we're being honest, gives us way to move forward. It gives us a way forward. So let me say this plainly and clearly. Deliverance is powerful, but deliverance alone by itself is not enough. Freedom must be formed. Freedom must be navigated in order to be maintained. And that's why the formation table exists. Not to diminish moments, but to build lives. To help people live from Monday to Saturday. Not to shame struggle, but to support growth. Not to rush people, but to walk alongside them. So if you've been frustrated with yourself, wondering why you keep circling the same places, hear this clearly. God did not free you by accident, but freedom matures through discipleship. And discipleship is a journey, it's a process, not a moment, not a destination. So if you're ready to stop cycling and start forming, if you're ready for freedom to become your daily rhythm instead of a recurring battle, I want to invite you to continue this journey inside of Motivate Institute, where formation isn't a one-time experience, it's a way of life. So until next time, stay present, stay submitted, and stay open to the work God is doing in you. I'm Dr. Motivate, and this has been the Formation Table.
Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, you can't turn back.